Thank you for joining me. I'm just going to dive right in. The question that we're here to answer today is what is this beautiful young person's future? This is an actual student in a Novi School District in Michigan. And in 10 years, she will graduate from high school. I know that's kind of hard to believe. She doesn't look like a high school student yet, but she will be a high school student. And in just 10 years, she's going to graduate. So, what is her future going to be like? And what are we going to need to do differently than we're doing right now to prepare her for that future? So, I want you to keep that in mind as we talk. What do we need to do differently than we're doing right now to prepare her for her future? So, let's just talk a little bit about her present. You're probably all familiar with the Uber app, right? This is a fantastic app that somebody came up with where you push a button and a person you've never met before in your life drives up in a car you've never seen before in your life. It's their personal car. And for whatever reason, you feel comfortable jumping in the back of that. They then drive you off to someplace you've never been before. And then you hop out and they hop out and you wave and everybody's happy, even though the only way you know they're an Uber is they took a piece of typing paper and they like shoved it in their window. So this is something that we call Uber, and this is the first interactive part of the presentation. When it comes to Uber, having the experience I just described, tell me where you are. Yes, yes, yes. I would drive and I would get in an Uber any day of the week. Yeah, I use it, but reluctantly, or no, thank you. I don't want to drive in somebody's stranger car. What do we have? We've got yes, yes, yes. So far, two yeses. See, I told you it's going to be interactive. Yes, yes, yes. Ooh, all right. A lot of Uber people here. Oh, someone is even a driver. Okay. Oh, we got a reluctantly. I'm not surprised. Yes, capital reluctantly. Okay. So now there's a problem with Uber, of course, and that's stranger danger. And but don't worry, there's a new app that solves this problem. In this app, you push a button and you're still in a strange city you've never been in. There's still a car you've never gotten in before in your life that drives up. The door still opens and you still get in, but we've eliminated stranger danger because there's nobody in the car. This is a service called Waymo, and the car that you get in looks like this, and there's nobody driving it. It's a robo driver. So um, now I want to know your response to this one. How do you feel about Waymo? Would you hop in the car that solves the stranger danger problem? Oh, these are very different. No, thank you, reluctantly. No, thank you, no, thank you, reluctantly, no, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, okay, so quite a different profile here. And in case you think I'm just making this up, this is my first Waymo ride in San Francisco earlier this year. And that is what it looks like. You're sitting in this car and there's nobody driving it. And you're going down the crazy streets of San Francisco, which are hard enough to navigate on your own, only now you're doing it in a car with literally no driver. And I can tell you that the experience was unsettling at first. And then eventually I was checking my email on the phone because you just adapt to technology. It just gets really normal. The difference between the Uber app and the Waymo app, I'm going to say is 10 years. That is the main reason. This is my proposal that I got all the reluctantly's on the second one or the hard nose and the yeses on the first one because it used to be crazy to get into an Uber and now it's not. And it's crazy to get into a Waymo now. But in 10 years, when this girl graduates, it's not going to feel crazy. Here's your next interactive question. What is the technology that you can hardly believe exists? Something that's already out there that you can just barely believe is actually real. Yeah, good point, Josh. We're not going to be able to avoid these things. There's more Waymos on the road than regular cars, and there will be. Okay, so you be thinking about what technology that you can hardly believe exists. I'm going to give you a few of mine while you're typing. So our student here, drone delivery service. Can you believe that this is real? People are actually dropping packages out of drones. Reusable rockets. I mean, come on. Like, I didn't even think that was a thing like 5 years ago, and now they land like every other day. That's crazy. CRISPR gene editing, this is also insanity. And not only did it lead to the fastest uh, novel vaccination development ever for the COVID vaccine, but you may not know this yet, they're already using it to create woolly mice. Okay, why does woolly mice matter? Well, because what they're actually trying to do is figure out how to bring back woolly mammoths. And so they found the same genes that are in a woolly mammoth DNA that are in mouse DNA, and they express them in the mouse as a stepping stone towards bringing back the woolly mammoth. And so you have to remember that in 10 years, she's going to have more than 10 years of woolly mice. And who knows, maybe she'll be at the zoo grabbing the trunk of a woolly mammoth in 10 years. This is how fast it's going. So interesting, Large Hadron Collider, that's a great example of a technology I can hardly believe exists. Reusable rockets agree. Oh, yeah, the song generator, the AI song generator. If you haven't played with Suno, it's so fun. First drafts, curious what you mean by that. We'll come back to that in a minute. So when we think about technology, one thing you need to think about is that there are things that we trade with technology. Now that we have technology, there are some things that I can no longer do. And you probably have a list like this too. So number one is spell. I'm just a disaster at spelling. I can't spell to save my life. I rely on spell checker. If I had no spell checker, I would lose my job in about 3 emails because people would think that they hired a first grader. I cannot find my way to a restaurant to save my life. I just use the apps and I follow wherever they go. I have no idea what my children's mobile numbers are. I know that's bad parenting, but they're in my phone, and so I don't worry about it. And the one that you may care about the most is I can no longer stay in my lane while driving. Why do I say that? Well, I got this new car and it's got this amazing lane keeping assistant and it's built in and it's very cool and it just keeps me in my lane. I didn't even know how reliant I was on it, except that my wife hates it. So she turns it off every time she gets in the car. And so I start driving and I start drifting. I'm like, why am I drifting? And I realize that she turned it off. So on the one hand, you could find that very disturbing. On the other hand, I have so much more cognitive space to not think about staying in my lane when I drive. I'm more relaxed. I can think about other things. It's actually an upgrade for me in what I'm doing with my brain. And when technology upgrades us, it also trades away something. And so I want you to think in terms of the technology trade-offs that are coming because of AI. So to kick this off, what is something you hope you will no longer do because of AI? What's on your wish list? What would you love to kick out the back door? For me, I'm not going to create a first draft of anything moving forward. I'm not going to schedule anything. Tax returns, I love that one. Meeting minutes. Yes, that's on my list too. Laundry. Oh, Kylie, you don't know. When people ask me, what do you want AI to do for you? I'm like, my laundry, just my laundry. I don't care about flying cars. Please, just do my laundry. We're not going to summarize anything. And soon, we're not going to hire a translator, a lawyer, an accountant, or graphic designer. And I'm really sorry for those people, but this technology is moving so fast, it's just not happening. Clean my house, cut the grass. Insurance companies. Yes, there's actually already a service that I saw that will robo talk to your insurance company. And, sort of like what's the movie, The Incredibles, right? That it's like that guy who's like, go here, fill out this form, hand it to them, do that, right? It tries to do that for you. The other thing that's happening with AI that we really have to keep our eye on is it's starting to hollow out entry-level jobs. And this is already happening. So last night, I asked Gemini to make a version of Frogger, but with a breakfast theme instead of a traffic theme, and make the player not a frog. That is the entire instructions. You're looking at all the instructions I gave to them. And it said, okay, we'll call it Toasty Track. Patty the Toasty will be our hero. There'll be hazards like rolling oranges, sliding bacon, marching blueberries. There'll be water hazards like rivers of syrup, coffee, and milk. And you have to jump on floating pancakes and waffles. And 8 minutes later, I am literally playing Patty the Toast. Is that what I am? I'm trying to get across into the toaster here. And as a bonus, when you get to the toaster down at the bottom, it gives you breakfast wisdom, which I didn't even ask for. 8 minutes. That is incredible. Fully functioning, fully working. So what we are experiencing is an acceleration of AI use that's unprecedented. There's over 400 million weekly users of ChatGPT. Every Fortune 500 company is using it. Most young people have used it. They're using it for assignments, and many teachers are using it weekly. I was at an event in Silicon Valley, and I happened to be there with Mira and Bill. Mira is no longer the CTO of OpenAI, but she was at the time. And she said, this is moving so fast, we don't even have that adequate vocabulary to describe it. This is the person who designs OpenAI, ChatGPT. And Bill made a really interesting point. He said, every other technology wave needed infrastructure before we could use it, but not generative AI. It's right on your phone. And so we're all experiencing this all at once, and we're doing it super fast. So what's happening is machines are taking more and more of the human tasks that we used to do. And that means that the human part of what we do is starting to get squeezed. And if you think it's not happening, I decided to think of the silliest, easy thing and the hardest thing. I'm like, nobody's going to use AI to do garbage collection. Of course, I'm totally wrong about that. They're already using AI for garbage collection. They use it to route the trucks. They use it to track the weather because that actually changes how many people put out their garbage. I guess people don't want to trek through the snow to the curb. And then they readjust everything based on the AI feedback. And then I thought, okay, fine, garbage collection, not too threatening. What about surgery? I'm not talking about a surgeon using a robot. I'm talking about AI surgery. Well, guess what? There's an AI surgeon that can do a better job repairing an intestine than a human. Yeah, if you're not getting into Waymo, I don't think you're getting under the knife of the AI surgeon. On the other hand, if you need your intestine repaired, you might want to think hard about that because it's better than the humans. Another thing that has recently come out, this just came out on April 1st, they did a study where an individual with AI, that's the yellow bar here, outperformed a team with no AI. Just think about that for a minute. An individual with AI outperformed a team with no AI. So what that means is that we are going to be working with AI teams. There's no way that's not going to happen. This AI literacy domain came out last week. I had the privilege of working on it as one of the international experts. And it's going to become an international standard. And if you look, there's 4 areas here: engaging with AI, creating with AI, designing AI. But look at this one, managing AI. And the way I talk about this is I think about our young people being the conductors of an AI orchestra, right? This is a new skill that they've never had before. And they need to be able to marshal AI resources to do the things that they want it to do. By the way, yes, I made that video with this prompt last night. It took it about 2.5 minutes to make the very video that I needed for this presentation. So if this is the case, then where are we going from here? What are the skills that are coming in? What are the ones that are in demand? Well, interestingly, on LinkedIn, look at the growth of the interest in these skills: flexibility, ethics, perceptiveness, self-management. Doesn't sound like AI. And then if you look at what the World Economic Forum is saying that the skills that are going to grow the fastest by 2030, of course, the first 3 you might expect: AI and big data, networking and cybersecurity, technology literacy. Got it, expected. Look at the rest: creative thinking, resilience, agility, curiosity, leadership, social influence. Those are not skills that an AI is going to do anytime soon. They also are not skills that are being taught in our schools systematically. This means that our schools have to refocus. We can't just focus on what we've been focusing on. So my next question for you is, what do you think our schools should focus on to prepare students for an AI world? Critical thinking, emotional intelligence, design thinking. Yes, making schools the center of curiosity and exploration, collaborative design. Really interesting. All right, I think we're on a similar wavelength here. So this is a real high school schedule that I got from the internet, so it has to be true. And this is what somebody mapped out for them over 4 years. And if you look at the right, these are the ChatGPT scores that are currently available with the current version of ChatGPT on these very competencies. I would argue that if ChatGPT is that good at something a student spent 4 years on, we are out of balance on the amount of time we're spending on those skills. And unfortunately, I think we just have not gotten over this idea that we're going to pour information into a student's head, they're going to regurgitate it, and that is somehow learning and preparing them for the future. There's a really provocative quote by Ted Dintersmith, who's the author of What Schools Could Be. And I actually think the guy who runs the podcast is on our call. Is that right? I think I saw you on here. I love this quote by Ted. Hey, Josh. I love this quote by Ted. Our obsolete school model trains kids to be slow, imperfect versions of AI. You may agree or disagree with that, but man, he's got a point. So where do we find the skills that we should be teaching? Well, they're not like hidden somewhere. For many organizations, they're right in their graduate profile. I mean, look at this is that same school district that that student came from. You've got effective communicator, curious innovator, resilient problem solver, creative critical thinker, empathetic collaborator, and purpose speaker. These are awesome skills. So it's not like schools don't have any idea what else they should be doing. They've actually got it on their website. The question is, are they doing it? What if we change the emphasis here? What if we change the balance? What if we led with the human skills that are not going to go obsolete? So I redid this schedule, putting the human skills in instead. And yes, AI helped me do this. But just look for a minute and just imagine what this person's high school experience would be like if this were their schedule. I love this. Foundations of empathy, persuasive expression, purpose-driven projects, global citizenship seminar. Can you imagine if this was the center of our school and we were wrapping in the numeracy and literacy, competencies around these things? Yes, exactly, Josh. Now I want to go back to school. I want to be a part of this. So how do we make this shift? So I have limited time. I could talk for a long time about this. I'm going to give you the short version. I think we need to make two fundamental shifts. The first one is we need to move from a grade-focused culture to a purpose-focused culture. I'll talk about what that is in a minute. And we need to move from knowledge transmission to expertise development. And these shifts will really help us prepare for the future. So I call that combination purpose-driven expertise. So purpose, and I'm going to give you a very academic definition here, and you can read it for your edification, but basically, it's something that matters deeply to yourself, but is also of consequence to the world around you. If it just matters to you, that can be a hobby or a passion, and those are totally fine. But a purpose has consequence to the people around you as well. Most students are never asked what their purpose is. It's never brought to school. Many schools have no idea what the purpose is of the people in their schools. They don't ask them these questions. They don't ask them what impact do they want to make? Who do they want to become? What problems do I care about? I was working with an urban Philadelphia school, high school, and there was a student there who was a single mom. And when we finally asked her to articulate her purpose, she said she wanted to open a homeless shelter for youth. Nobody knew that about her. Nobody had any idea that she had this ambition. Can you imagine how different her schooling experience could have been If her teachers would have known that she has this ambition, this is fundamental to student engagement, and we completely ignore it. The research around purpose is extensive and all positive. So the fact that we're leaving it out of school is almost criminal given how useful it is. The second part of this equation is expertise development. And this is beyond knowledge transmission. So knowledge transmission is a part of it. It's an important element, but expertise goes far beyond just knowledge development. And I don't have time to talk through all of this, but these are 4 research-based elements to it. And just to give you a sense, it's not just like the durable skills that I was talking about before. It's not that we don't know what they are, right? We have them. They're in a profile of a graduate. We know what expertise development looks like. We just don't do it in school. So I, years ago, got talked into taking up climbing by my child, and we go to the climbing gym. And the climbing gym has all the aspects of expertise development that you would ever want to see. There is deliberate practice, there is self-reflection, there is guidance by a mentor and a coach, and there is an authentic setting. I climb over here indoors with authentic setting so that when I climb outdoors, I'm prepared. So just think for a minute about how we teach. What is the climbing gym for science? What's the climbing gym for civics? What's the climbing gym for community building? How do we bring those into our schools? Our spaces have to reflect our core values and activities, and right now they don't. So in collaboration with Fielding, I worked with them and a team of learning designers to create 5 design patterns. I'm going to go over them briefly here that reflect what school would look like and how it would be built if we did these things. And Nathan is going to drop into the chat a link to a full booklet about this. But we're going to go over them quickly. So one thing that is really important for purpose-driven expertise is reflection. We need to be able to consider our strengths and review our performance. So what if we had reflection booths in schools? These are isolated sonically, so you have some focus, writable surfaces all around you. You've got whiteboards, some nice lighting. You can put on headphones. You can tune out the world, and you can really reflect on your purpose. You can reflect on your experience. Why aren't these everywhere? And they can be. We just need to choose to prioritize them. And we can find them in little nooks throughout the school and be a place where students can simply reflect. A second one that is really important is inspiration. If you're going to engage in purpose-driven expertise, you've got to be inspired. You have to have things that help you think about your purpose and also help you drive past the obstacles that'll come as you try to develop expertise, because it's not easy. One design element that we could add to schools is a cabinet of curiosities. So this is where students can not only put the things that they've done, which we kind of already do, but they can put the things that they are doing, that they're interested in, that they're working on. They can show their journey here and inspire other students on their purpose and expertise development journey. And again, you could build these new, but what if you just repurposed a trophy case that has old dusty trophies from people that nobody remembers, and instead had students display what they're working on, what they care about, what their passions are. A third element of expertise development is mentoring. It's really important that a young person has a coach and a mentor who can help them on that path. Well, where and how do we mentor? One way is a walk and talk pathway. And imagine a place that allows you to be reflective, where there's signage along the way that prompts you to have a conversation with a mentor and think through a problem or get some advice. And yes, it'd be awesome if we could all have schools in amazing bucolic settings where we can do this, but even in an urban environment, you could simply repurpose a courtyard in your school by putting up these signs or even QR codes that have those discussion prompts, and then allowing a mentor and a learner to walk together and talk. Another element is storytelling. It's so important that students are able to tell stories. It helps them uncover their purpose. It also helps them work through blockages when they're developing expertise because they can talk it through with others. So imagine a celebration stage that's all designed around the student, a place where they can be visible, where they can share their ideas, where they can share their struggles, where we can celebrate with them when they're making progress in their journey. We can use existing stages, or I love this one on the right side. This is a fold-out stage in a gym. So you fold it up, and you have gym time, and when you want a stage, you pop it down, and instantly you have a student-centered place where students can share. The last one I'm going to, second to last, no, last, this is last, is the community connections. If we're going to help students learn about purpose and do something that has a consequence for the world around them, we have to connect them to the world around them. And we don't connect schools to community enough. And so we designed a storefront. This is a place where, yes, a Murphy stage. I love that, Ken. This is a storefront where we can have students showcase their either products or services or passions or purposes. And we had several students do this in Philadelphia where one of them was really interested in microgreens and how they are a super nutritious way to have greens in your diet, even if you live in an urban desert, food desert. And so she had her whole microgreens display and was sharing with everyone about microgreens. There's so many possibilities once you open this up. So these are 5 areas that we explored in space, in schools, that we felt would help embed purpose-driven expertise in the spaces in which we learn. So what I want you to consider moving forward is, what are the future you are designing for this child? What will your school spaces look like? How will you prioritize the time that she spends preparing for the world? Will it be on the human skills that machines can't replicate? Or will you spend most of your time on the skills that machines are already as good at her or better? And how will you make these decisions? My last thought is, because we can't prepare students for everything, and I feel like a lot of schools try and do that, we have to choose to prepare them for anything. And the way to prepare them for anything is to give them these independent skills and tools that they can use to bring the future to them.
If I may say something here, that we need to highlight the importance of how rapidly the change in actually the science change accumulatively. Every day we hear like now you have a new 3D printing inside the abdomen that can, rebuild some of the tissues inside you and so on. So this rapid progress in science and in other aspects through the technology, I don't think the formal curriculum in the governments will be able to catch up with by the time they author it and validate it and print it out. So I think we need to come up with as brains here talking together, to come up with a formula that will support how the students become researchers and their teachers. We put the let's say these are the international standards, the national standards. What do we want to go? Which areas we need our students in our country or their country to excel with based on what they have, and then they work on that based on a certain validation or quality assurance criteria. I think this is a very important point that we need really to have as a niche. And I'm open. I mean, I think maybe I will send you my email in the chat. I am open to this on a very high level. I mean, even with the people, or even as teachers and educators in the field, they are very important ones also to be engaged in here. So we can come up with a formula that really we can make like a kind of like a sheet that we can, raise our hands with to say, listen, we have to ring the bell. There is something is happening that we have to take care of, instead of being lacking behind. And there is a big gap now occurring between students who have and the ones who don't have.
Yeah, and I know Joseph mentioned that he works with governments, and I do think that the way that our state and local governments prioritize certain standards actually makes it really difficult to do some of the things that Joseph is saying that we should do. So maybe in the Q&A we can hear a little bit about that work. That how can we shift some government practices, some statutory practices that makes it easier to make these things happen. Really quick, is there one or two others, or Fielding, learning designer, anything that came out of your discussions?
I think we should go to Q&A with Joseph. I'll just say a lot of consensus around rethinking the way we measure success, and that will be a definitely an important, I would say, pivot point on how this all becomes more relevant to our students.
What we measure sends signals to what schools are actually going to do. So absolutely 100%. Okay, so we're pivoting to Q&A. Joseph, thank you for taking the time. We have about 14 minutes to get into it. If you have a question for Joseph, if you could please put it in the chat, and we will curate what we come up with here. So
while people are adding, there's one that surfaced earlier, and that was, what do we know about cultivating purpose and expertise for our younger learners? Is this only for secondary, or is this something that applies to our early learners? So Joseph, do you want to take that one to start?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I saw somebody commented saying the fact that kids ask so many questions when they're little is in a way that, they is a way they're seeking for purpose, right? The studies have shown that students tend to start thinking about their consequences for the world in middle school. So it's not that a elementary school child can't have purpose, and a lot of them do. And I remember when I was like in first grade, I got out my little red wagon with my friends, and we went and picked up all the cigarette butts in our neighborhood, and there were a lot of them at the time because that's how old I am. And we had purpose at that age, right? We didn't want the world to be polluted, and we decided to do something about it. So it can start that young. Most schools first engage in middle school, late middle school, and high school. I'm going to answer the government question while we're waiting.
Yeah, please do.
So one of the biggest changes a government can make is to create and endorse AI literacies. Until AI is recognized as a literacy, then it's not going to be incorporated into any of our measurement systems. So I think that's an important aspect. The second thing that governments need to do is they need to overcome their singular obsession on college admittance as their measure of success. Because one, a lot of people aren't finishing college. And so admitting to college is not the goal. If you're going to have a college goal, it should be finishing college, and not leaving with an unfinished degree and a bunch of debt. And the other thing is that there are many, many incredible ways, debt-free ways, to live a life of meaning in other trades. And we know that those are also meaningful. We also know that as the world gets more global, there's going to be more niche professions available. And by a person developing purpose and expertise aligned to that purpose, they're going to be more prepared for those niche parts of the economy and be more fulfilled in filling them. And so as governments focus on career preparation, then it will also push them in the right direction.
So Joseph, we have two questions here. So we'll line them up. First was Danny, and his question was, how do we make sure AI makes kids and us smarter and more creative rather than lazy or incompetent? And then the second one is really exciting, which is about space design. So we just want to make sure we have time for both of those. So once you answer that, I'll read you the second question.
Okay, so the first one is a fantastic question. I'm so glad you asked. I didn't have a chance to talk about the perils of technology. Most of the time when new technologies come, we use them to replicate what we've already done. I call it the copy and paste mentality. And I literally, when my child was in the fourth grade, or no, they were younger, second grade, they said, Dad, my teacher is giving us an app on the computer to practice math. And they were so excited. And we logged in, and it was literally a scanned in spreadsheet. And I had very unshareable views about that teacher after having my son experience in that when my whole world is ed tech. But that was technology. They were using the internet. That was legit in their mind, but they were not thinking about the goal. And AI can be used in exactly the same way. You can make 10,000 true false questions, which, guess what? There's a 50% chance of getting a true false question right, whether you know the answer or not. We shouldn't ever make one true false question. And now we're using AI to fill up pages with them. So one of the best ways that we can make this shift is we can see the student as a creator, as a contributor. So if they see themselves as a creator, they're not just going to be lazy with it. And if they're contributing something to their community, they have a reason to do great work. And those shifts are the kinds of things that will turn that around.
That's wonderful, Joseph. And the second question specific to space design from Josh about what school could be, how space design and teaching in teams intersect, and if you have any examples that you can share.
Well, I'll start, but I think maybe the filming team can jump in on this. A lot of times, space sets the parameters of our imagination. And I think you've probably experienced this. You've been in spaces where you could just think amazing thoughts, or you've been in spaces that just like tie you down. And so I want spaces to open up the imagination space for students and afford them the things that are going to lead them to the best outcomes, right? And if there's a space that's showing you many possibilities, you're going to think in many possibilities. If there's a space that's showing you, look at this one wall, then you're going to be constrained by those possibilities. And so I think a reconfigurable space is really important because we know these things will change, and a space that is oriented towards the possibilities you want a person to consider is important. Mike, anything you want to add to that?
I think that just the idea of the collaborative opportunity of adults to take on this challenge is critical. When we see space supporting collaborative interaction of educators and collaborative interaction of young people empowered with tools like AI, you see the ability for people to take on more of the position of facilitators, and then to your point, coaches and guides and mentors along a path, which is directly in support of this purpose-driven expertise mindset. And so environments that actually encourage those happy collisions of ideas and the ability to be both a coach and a mentor and not just the authority is really critical in cultivating all of the kind of competencies and skills that you've already begun to talk about today.
Joseph, there's another question in the chat from Brian, and I think he's referencing that a lot of educators are not currently using artificial intelligence as a tool for planning. I know we at Fielding is something that we introduce with teachers, and some are just really hesitant, and some just feel like they have so much going on that they can't have time to learn something new. Yet when teachers do, it's just such a powerful tool that they can use for so many different reasons. But his question is, how can we learn about AI as teachers who've never used it? And any sort of tips for getting teachers to kind of embrace this technology?
So I'm going to make a plug for my day job. I work for ISTE, and if you go to iste.org/AI, we have a whole bunch of resources for teachers. But let me give you a more practical, immediate step. One of the best ways that you can jump into the AI pool is open up any one of these, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. There's free versions, and ask it about your area of expertise. So ask it about the thing that you teach, and ask it questions like, what do 10th graders struggle the most with in civics? What are the common misconceptions about the conservation of momentum, right? Something, whatever your expertise is, start quizzing it about your expertise, and you will very soon see what it can and can't do, right? So you're going to be amazed by what it knows and what it can do. And you're also going to start seeing its limitations. And then you can start asking it questions like, how do I make a super engaging interactive experience that I can do in 30 minutes that teaches about momentum, that will be fascinating to a millennial, right? And see what it says. So it's just taking those first steps can really be eye-opening and start leading you to a more generative relationship with generative AI.
Thanks, Joseph.
I'd
Another
say if you're
question
teaching
came in.
10th graders,
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
just don't ask it to be fascinating to millennials. Ask it to be fascinating to
sorry.
Gen Alpha. Yeah.
Gen Alpha. Did I say millennials? I meant Gen
You
Alpha.
did, but that's okay. It would be fascinating to us too.
And we have a couple more minutes left. So if you have another, we might have time for one more question after this one. David Lopez says, a new trend that we're seeing is large language models, AI tools that are currently built for education are completely teacher-centric versus being student-centric. Is there anything being done to strain out those biases?
Great question, David. And you probably saw the most recent study that was done by a third party, which actually tested the education-focused LLMs for this bias and found a high propensity bias towards teacher-centered approaches. So what that says to me is that the people who are making those tools are using the copy and paste mentality, right? They're giving something the teacher already knows, is already familiar with, and already comfortable with, and that tends to be teacher-centered. And that's not unusual. Usually when new technologies are introduced, they're first introduced in a way that reflects the nostalgia of the past because it makes them feel comfortable for the new, right? But if you stay there, that's when you've lost the future, right? So you have to push beyond that. So the only way we're going to get those biases out, David, is for individual schools to know what their instructional goals are and bring those to the tool rather than saying, oh, I've got the AI tool, now I'm doing AI in education, right? You have to start with your instructional goals and your outcomes and make sure the tool reflects those philosophies. And if that doesn't happen, then you're absolutely right. We're just going to see teacher-centered AI tools dominating the country.
Yeah. And what I would add to that, because we use AI tools a lot with educators, is it's fairly on a micro scale. If you want to just very quickly train the AI, you don't need to create a new GPT or anything like that. You can just say, I'm a teacher and I want to plan high quality project-based learning unit that prioritizes student deep engagement, inquiry-based learning, community connections, and then ask your question. And it's going to kind of remove some of those teacher-centered biases that might exist. But Mike, you get to close us out. But before I do that, Joseph, thank you so much. This has been incredible. Every time I hear from you, I'm just like, my mind's spinning. The wheels are going. So thank you so much for being with us today.